One of the most infamous unsolved crimes in history is the Jack the Ripper case. Between August and November of 1888, a serial killer terrorized the Whitechapel district of London, England, killing at least 5 women and mutilating their bodies in a gruesome and macabre fashion. Despite an extensive investigation by the London police, the identity of the killer has never been definitively established, and the case remains one of the most enduring mysteries in criminal history. The murders attributed to Jack the Ripper began on August 31, 1888, when the body of Mary Ann Nichols was discovered in a Whitechapel alleyway. Over the next several weeks, 4 more women would be killed in a similar manner, their bodies mutilated with a sharp knife and left in public spaces for all to see. The killer, who became known as Jack the Ripper, gained notoriety for his gruesome and violent crimes, which included the removal of organs and body parts. He also sent taunting letters to the press and the police, in which he claimed responsibility for the murders and threatened to kill again. The investigation into the Jack the Ripper case was one of the most extensive and complex in British history. The police interviewed thousands of potential witnesses and suspects, including several men who had been arrested on suspicion of the murders. One of the most promising suspects was a man named Montague John Druitt, a barrister who had been dismissed from his job shortly before the murders began. However, no conclusive evidence was ever found linking Druitt to the crimes, and he committed suicide shortly after the last murder was committed. Over the years, a number of other suspects and theories have emerged in the Jack the Ripper case, including a Polish immigrant named Aaron Kosminski and a royal physician named Sir William Gull. However, none of the suspects or theories have ever been proven definitively, and the case remains one of the most perplexing and enduring mysteries in criminal history. The legacy of the Jack the Ripper case is one of fear, uncertainty, and the enduring fascination of true crime. The killer's taunting letters and gruesome crimes have captured the public's imagination, and the case has inspired numerous books, films, and documentaries. However, it is important to remember that behind the mystery and intrigue of the Jack the Ripper case are real people whose lives were forever changed by violence and loss. The victims and their families deserve justice and closure, and it is the responsibility of law enforcement and the public to continue to work towards solving the case. While it is tempting to focus on the identity of the killer and the mystery of the Jack the Ripper letters, it is important to remember that every unsolved crime represents a human tragedy. The victims of Jack the Ripper were women who were marginalized and vulnerable, and their lives were cut short by senseless violence. As we continue to study and investigate the Jack the Ripper case, we must remember the importance of empathy, compassion, and justice. We must work to prevent such tragedies from happening again, and we must never forget the victims and their families who have been forever impacted by the violence and loss. While the Jack the Ripper case may never be solved definitively, it serves as a reminder of the importance of justice and the need to hold those responsible for violent crimes accountable. As we continue to seek answers and work towards preventing such tragedies from happening again in the future, we must honor the memory of the victims and their families and strive to create a more just and compassionate society. The Jack the Ripper case also raises important questions about the historical context and social factors that contributed to the killings. The Whitechapel district of London in the late 19th century was a poverty-stricken area with high crime rates and a large population of immigrants and marginalized individuals. The victims of Jack the Ripper were all women who were working as prostitutes, and their deaths were often dismissed or marginalized by society at the time. The investigation into the case was also marred by institutionalized prejudice and a lack of resources, as the police were often more focused on protecting the reputation of the city than on solving the murders. The case of Jack the Ripper remains one of the most enduring mysteries in criminal history, and it has inspired numerous theories, books, films, and cultural artifacts. However, it is important to remember that behind the intrigue and fascination of the case are real people whose lives were forever changed by violence and loss. As we continue to study and investigate the Jack the Ripper case, we must remember the importance of justice, empathy, and compassion. We must work to prevent such tragedies from happening again, and we must never forget the victims and their families who have been forever impacted by the violence and loss. The legacy of the Jack the Ripper case is one of tragedy and mystery, but it is also a reminder of the need for justice and the importance of holding those responsible for violent crimes accountable. We must continue to seek answers and work towards preventing such tragedies from happening again in the future so that we may honor the memory of the victims and create a more just and compassionate society.
If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe to be notified when more stories are uploaded.